So I'm thrilled to welcome Nick Masci, Masci.
Masci, no, you had it.
Masci. I got it right the first time. And you and I worked together for a while at Triumph Modular and became very familiar with your skills there. And I'm thrilled to have you join me today. And you've now launched a new company. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, yeah. Hi, Rusty. So yeah, we we've been working on industrialized construction for 4 years at our previous firm, Haley and Aldrich, which was a great place to work, and we're still friends with them. And then we just decided to spin out so we could be solely focused on industrialized construction. So there are five of us that are doing this with Melissa McEwen and Sally Mizell are my business partners. And then we have two engineers that are also with us, Stephen Hayes and Colton Callender. So as a five-person team, we're not we're not scrappy, so there's a lot we can do. So it's really about this mega moment of industrialized construction. It's going to take new skills. It's going to take change management. It's going to take knowing where you're at, adaptive behaviors, new skills. So that's what we're all about. And yeah, so we could talk more about how we're doing it and who we're doing it with, but that's the main idea.
Well, maybe the best place to start is define for us what you mean by industrialized. So I'm familiar
Yeah,
with the
that's a good
terms
one.
modular, prefab.
Right.
How does that term kind of differ from those, and why did you choose it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think getting connected on vernacular is important. So for us, industrialized construction means the addition of manufacturing techniques to the built environment. And there's a lot of reasons why that's happening. And be cool to talk about those. But we started just with prefab. That's what people mostly think about when they think about this movement. And so, but prefab can happen. It can happen on site or off site. It can happen in near site facilities that people are leasing. So, industrialized construction, it grabs the whole range of things that are required to have this major shift in the way that we build buildings. And so it includes design for manufacturing and assembly. So it just brings in more of the terminology. So this DFMA is a big term, design for manufacturing and assembly, or manufacturing informed design you'll hear sometimes too. So these are all new terms, but IC is meant to capture this whole umbrella of activities.
I see. When I first met you, you were one of the biggest proponents and most skilled people I've met at lean manufacturing. Does that dovetail with what you're now calling industrialized
Yeah,
construction?
for sure. I mean, you don't have to use lean manufacturing, but lean manufacturing's proven it's the most widely adopted management system in the world. And so why not use it for this? And lean is a great place to be for mostly process improvements. And that's what this industry is filled with lots of processes that need to be connected. So the other great part about lean thinking is it's about systems thinking. And this is much more about how we connect the entire system from the beginning to the end, much more so than in traditional construction. So lean has been gaining a foothold in construction anyway. And I'm really psyched about it because, now we get to do like lean manufacturing on the shop floor where I got a lot of my training. So now we're doing work cell development and managing for flow and pull and doing all the things that really can improve our productivity dramatically.
It's interesting you emphasize process because I was thinking as I was thinking about reconnecting with you that lean in a way is almost the antithesis of construction where everything is set in stone and can't be changed, whereas lean is about continuous improvement and refinement. So it's you're saying it's much more around the process of planning and executing than it is about anything ongoing.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, it's everything. So of course it's about kind of this a couple good isms about leaners like go slow to go fast. So if we can put more effort into the upfront, then things will go quicker once we move to the execution phase. And so this does require more thinking upfront if you're going to be using offsite construction, because of course we're going to need more fully developed drawings so that while we're breaking ground, we're also creating some of the finished products. I mean, that's the beauty of some of this, is that we have concurrent activities happening, and everything just isn't happening in a daisy chain like it does normally in construction. So we're looking to take advantage of these concurrent activities. So sometimes I just call myself a process engineer. What do you do for a living? I'm a process engineer. I help take a process apart and put it back in a better way. And that term I think a lot of people are familiar with is called Kaizen, taking it apart and putting it back in a better way so that it makes work easier for people. And then we're always chasing, of course, continuous improvement.
So now maybe we should tie this back to ICG. Like I noticed in the your announcement about ICG that you have benchmarking and other kind of services. So what's like the key services you provide, and what are
Mm.
your best kind of clients or people who would benefit most from the service you
Yeah.
provide?
Okay. So our OG client, the one that got us started really in this type of thinking, is Gaston Electrical. And I'm in New England, and they're right here in the greater Boston area. And they had a fab shop, and we met with them, and they said, we have this fab shop, but we're just not sure if we're getting enough out of it. So we went in and started working with them, and we were really interested in work cells and having better processes for people to put together lighting controls and rough in assemblies and all sorts of electrical things. And then what we found, of course, because we're systems thinkers, is that many of the things that were manifesting themselves as problems on the shop floor had their origin, had their birth somewhere else in the process, either upstream or downstream. And so we took it upon ourselves to create a way to look at all those things together. And that became what we call our industrialized construction maturity assessment. How can we look at the entire system and see if it's working? So the ICMA, the industrialized construction maturity assessment, looks across 6 disciplines. There's 70 topics, and each one of the topics has a level from 1 to 5 in terms of maturity. Level 1 being kind of just getting started, to developing and emerging, stabilizing, innovating, and reaching the top of the mountain, which is optimizing what we would just say is world-class performance regardless of the industry. And so those 6 disciplines are the core and the culture is number 1, then the management systems, the problem-solving capabilities, design, manufacturing, and sustainability measures. So all those things need to be working in harmony. So we originally put it in a house because people understand a house. You got to put your house in order. It's got to be in some sort of harmony. And we really want core and management systems and problem solving to be leading the technical skills of design and engineering. So we like a couple Japanese terms. The one that I like for this is nemawashi, which is working around the roots,
Mhm.
preparing the ground for planting. So we have to have those 3 advancing things working so that when we plant the seed, the technical seed of design, engineering, and installation, they can really grow and thrive.
Interesting. The other thing that has been in the news is the relative struggles that industrialized or modular or prefab construction have had here in the States, especially. Um, can you put that in context, like maybe why that you think that's happening and why what you're doing with
Yeah,
ICG may help with that?
that's a good question. So, yeah, I think that's really tied to our evolution as a company too. We started out with, on one shop floor, and as the years have gone on, we've been at it for about 4 years now. We find ourselves moving further and further to the left in terms of the program and project birth, and that's gotten us up to the owner level. And now we're using this ICMA as a supply card tool for the supplier scorecard for owners so that they can be looking into their supply chain and saying, who is ready for this moment? And what that is doing is it's creating some urgency for the supply chain to react, because the owners are saying, this is how I want my projects to happen. So going back to your original question, I would say that one of the reasons why it's been hard to get a foothold is because there hasn't been enough urgency for change. We've been satisfied with the status quo. And if there's no real impetus to change, then you don't. And many of the contractors are making healthy profits. So, like, why should I change? And so we need the dissatisfaction from the customer. The customer should be specifying value in a lean system. And when they start specifying that they're dissatisfied with the status quo, this industry is filled with smart people, ambitious people. So they're ready to change. They just needed the spark. So we hope that by making these scores visible, it's going to give people some urgency and impetus to change. And by the way, we're also showing that as you climb in your levels of maturity and competency, so does your profit and your productivity. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Interesting. So, would you say both for your own clientele and maybe just more broadly in the industry, is there a specific area that you think is especially ripe for this kind of, is it residential, industrial, or commercial? Is there a place that you think it's really set to catch on in a big, big way?
Well, I think we just have to talk about, like who productizing owners would be the best place to start. So productizing owners would be owners that have a real estate portfolio and they're also serial builders. They can start to build in some standardized products that the market can then start to manufacture. So a good example of this is, of course, not of course, but mission critical. So data centers and now battery plants. You know, a data center should be a very known quantity. Um, so we should be able to figure out what goes in a data center, and really 80 or 90% of that should be repeatable. And you just put these things together in different ways. Another good market for this is healthcare. Um, every healthcare system has an ambulatory growth strategy. They need more outpatient clinics. These outpatient clinics now are starting to be designed so that there's 8 or 9 components to them, and you put them together in different flavors for whoever the client you're serving, the population. And then you can be, we should have standard procedure rooms. We should have standard um, imaging centers. So all these things can start to move off site, and the off site capabilities, then we're looking for like 5x productivity off site. So these aren't scrappy things. We're not talking about nibbling around the edge here. We're talking about big improvements in terms of how to get things done. I mean, our BHAG for this is 50, 70, 70, 50% faster with 70% fewer people on site and 70% fewer deliveries. Those are all good things. So some other ones, we use this tool with Cal Poly. They're undertaking a master housing program, and so it's a 10-year housing program, and they want to standardize it because they're saying to themselves across the California State University system, it's ridiculous that we keep redesigning what a 2-bedroom suite looks like. We need 33,000 new beds across the CSU. Let's standardize on this design. Then we know what that's going to look like. And then the designers can kind of luxuriate in what the skin looks like and the common spaces and the landscape design. Let's stop redesigning the things that are the building blocks of buildings so that we can do those with much greater efficiency, speed, safety. And by the way, if we're doing this offsite, if I'm just going to rant for a second, that means that we're going to have better facilities for doing this, and we're going to unlock a whole new wave of workers that are able to do this. So you don't have to, you don't have to climb up these ladders. It's not a dangerous work site. You don't have to lift 100 pounds. The ergonomics should be near perfect in a factory. One of the things we say is on a job site, the worker goes to the work. In a factory, the work comes to the worker. It's presented to them perfectly with the right lighting. Everything is right. I don't have to look for anything. So all these things add up to miraculous gains. But as you can tell by just this list of things I went over, it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's where our benchmarking system lets you know where you're at so you can define a strategy and measure if you're getting there.
Interesting. The other debate that we often got into was between volumetric modular and
Yeah.
fab. Do you carry one flag or the other, or do you really don't? That's
No, no way. It's a Big Ten. Everybody's welcome.
yeah.
So we want everything from smart components that come into the workspace that, take less effort to install, all the way up to volumetric modular and everything in between. And, with the advent of generative design, then we're going to see a much easier way to figure out what is the right mix on a project. So yeah, I think that getting into that Hatfield versus McCoy on volumetric versus panelized or subassemblies is that's a foolish battle because there's a lot of space for everybody.
Interesting. Um, you just mentioned well, you mentioned technology and generative. Makes me think of in my world of technology, the AI craze that's going on. Does AI
Uh-huh.
factor into this in a way that you can sort of already describe or visualize, or aren't you really sure yet?
No, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think in the design side, we just touched on generative design, which is, entering a building program into a model and then letting it give you all sorts of different flavors of what's possible. But right now we're doing factory simulation models for our customers with discrete event simulation. So we're putting in these parameters, and now we're turning that into a digital twin for the factory. And then we'll be able to add in these different inputs for what's in the pipeline. What happens if this project slows down because construction slows and speeds? It'll be able to give us predictive looks into what happens in the factory, where will the bottlenecks show up.
Mhm.
We also see going forward that we're going to be having um, moving to the Internet of Things in the factory in Factory 4.0. So these factories will have a presence in them, and we hope that we can help our customers monitor their factories to a better extent. We'll be monitoring some things, and we'll be able to see if processes are in control or out of control. Should we have augmented reality coaching happen? And you'll be able to get data sets as a plant manager and see, how am I doing against my peer groups? And my customer will be able to see that too, to whatever extent they wish to have that happen. So yeah, there's all sorts of room for this. I totally see, for me, AI is, let's just simplify things, take away the mundacity of things so that people can unlock their highest potential.
Mhm.
I always want people working at the top of their license. That's kind of, I learned that from clinicians. Like, they always want their clinical staff working at the top of their license. I want us working at the top of our license. And we're not doing this the way that things are happening now. That's one of the big ahas that should be attracting people to IC.
That's great. Well, we'll wrap up, but I not sure if this will be the best question, but I'm interested in what
Okay.
you think your prospects, your clients, the people you talk to should be asking as questions. What should they come to you or somebody else and be saying right now uh, to kind of help refine and move in a more efficient direction?
Well, if I just think about the companies in the construction industry, so many of them come from family heritage, and they're in the second or third generation. And so I think they ought to be looking at this moment, as they're always looking about and thinking about, where am I going to leave this company? Is this, I feel like this is a moment of stewardship for a lot of companies. And I'm hearing that from our customers. They're saying, like, I want to set this up for this next wave of people coming through. So go out and read the articles. This is not a negotiable trend that's happening. If you want to stay with the way you are, then stay in the remodeling market and the single luxury home business. But for 90% of the world, this is a great answer for affordable housing and better buildings. So I think that this is a moment of stewardship for companies to get on board before it's too late. I don't think you want to be on the second half of that curve of innovation where you're a laggard and you're left behind, because there will be winners and losers. So be a winner.
Awesome. Well, as always, Nick, I really appreciate your time, and it's always fascinating to speak with you.
All right. Thank you, Rusty.